right, guys. Well, welcome back to Blitz Creek. As you can tell, we're here, Old Town Barbershop. We got the sign in this time. So we got week one out of the way. We're now at week two. How you doing, Josh?
Doing good, Glenn. Great to be here. Happy to get the sign up and in the shot, and ready to pick some games.
That's right. So last week we had some ups and downs. We had some surprise picks. Hopefully this week it goes a little different. No surprises, but we'll see from there. As always, we'd like to thank our sponsors here at the Old Town Barbershop for letting us come in and record, always being a big supporter of us. And Appa Bagworks. Again, if you need some handcrafted leather goods, check them out on Instagram, Facebook. Stop by Bohemian Gray. I think that's the name of it on Main Street. There's some products there as well. We'd like to thank our supporters on Spotify, Apple, and our 10 subscribers we have. We're growing on YouTube. We really appreciate you guys. Like, subscribe, comment. We really appreciate that. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into our picks for the week. I'll start off with this week because I made you start off last week.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you being so kind and generous by taking this head on first.
So the first game we've got for you is Pulaski County traveling to Tazewell to take on the Bulldogs. So Tazewell's got some growing pains going on right now, if that's what we can say on the offensive side. With Lee in our scrimmage, we looked fairly well. We moved the ball a little bit. But in our benefit game against Chilhowie, we struggled. Defensive side played well. We only allowed 10 points. On the offensive side, we didn't score until the third quarter with I think my father-in-law said it was 3 minutes to the third quarter. Mm-hmm. And the first down didn't come until then. On the other side of the ball, Pulaski County took on Northside, which is a private school in Roanoke. That game was 42-20 with the Cougars losing in a defeat, but they still put up 20 points against a 3A Northside that went to the playoffs.
Yes, they did go to the playoffs, and they actually made a little deep run into the playoffs. I think it was Botetourt that ended up getting them in the end, 49-48.
It was a close game.
In a wild game. And Northside's been perennially a really good Region 3D football team.
So with all that being said, you know where my loyalty lies. Not to say that there's an assistant coach sitting right here right now getting his hair cut. I'm going to take the Cougars in this one, 28-7.
I think that everything you said is very true. I think that Tazewell has struggled offensively in the preseason, and that has a lot to do with learning a new system, going from the fun and gun to a more controlled run the ball thought process and philosophy. However, their defense has been a bright spot for them.
Correct.
Lee never sniffed the end zone, and Chilhowie scored 10 points, but that was also, basically a result of the offense not being able to move the ball really, and kind of putting the defense in bad situations. And the defense has been put in bad situations over the last 5 years, in some really tight situations. But I think Tazewell can hang their hat on a defense that seems to be improved. I mean, the fact that Chilhowie only scored 10 points against them, and I know their quarterback went out, but Chilhowie also went down to Marion and put up 38 points and shut out Marion in week one. So take what you will out of the benefit game, and I don't like to put a lot of stock in benefit games because lots of kids you're trying to get a lot of kids in there and trying to get them to figure out football maybe for the first time.
Right.
Especially on the varsity level. But I do like the fact that Tazewell's defense has shown some life. But this is Pulaski, and they put up 20 points on a really good North Side team that's returning a lot of kids, and will look to compete for that 3A regional championship. I like the fact that Tazewell's defense will play hard, especially in the first half. I'm just not quite sure what they can do in the second half. The offense has to step up, control the football a little bit. Pulaski runs the wing tee. They're going to do some things, but they're also running some spread. And I don't really call it spread anymore. It's just the normal offense.
Right.
So Pulaski will have played against wing tee teams in practice over and over for the last few years. I know they're talking about spread and all this other stuff, but they'll be prepared for Tazewell's offense. I like Pulaski. 26, Tazewell 6.
All right, now we got that out of the way. We can breathe a little bit. So, our next game is the Lebanon Pioneers traveling across the mountain to take on Patrick Henry. Last year, we thought that game would be a little closer than it was, and the Pioneers ran away at the end, taking that game. But with Patrick Henry, they just played V-High and beat them 42-7. So V-High played Richlands the week before. They won that game. And then Lebanon is coming off a close one with Honaker. That was a back-and-forth game until one of the wide receivers got hurt, which was his go-to, and then the Pioneers were able to pull away. So with all that being said, what do you think in this game?
Well, the biggest part for me, Lebanon showed basically the offensive firepower that it had last year. I mean, they racked up close to 500 yards, if not 500 yards, and put up 49 points. I don't know how to reconcile PH, and I don't know how to reconcile Virginia High.
Right?
I don't know how to deal with that. So while I see PH being able to score points, I don't know how they deal with the firepower that Lebanon has, and I'm also trying to reconcile what Virginia High has become, because I don't know how to deal with Virginia High right now.
Right.
They're such an unknown, and they're up and they're down, and I don't know how that plays into like a Richlands team that kind of did something that I didn't think that they were going to do. So while I do think that PH can score points, I just don't know if they can keep up with a Lebanon squad that can put up a lot of points and will put up a lot of points and put up a lot of points against them last year.
Right.
So with that being said, which is our phrase here,
It is.
I like Lebanon, not so much in a close one, but in a high-scoring affair, 47-28.
Well, as we know with what we're seeing under Coach Pageant, run the ball, control the ball. If PH is still running that type of offense, Lebanon's not going to touch it as much unless there's some 3-and-outs. As we see, PH can put up points. So we know what V-High had last year. I don't think they're as down as we thought they might have been. I don't know if I want to pick the upset here. I just want to put you on upset watch for PH. But I do like V-High in this one. Or not V-High.
Lebanon.
We're talking about V-High too much. Lebanon, 32, PH 28.
I don't mind that score. I just wonder if either team can stop the other team that much. And I understand PH being able to run the ball and control the clock, but they scored 42 points, and so when you score 6 touchdowns in a game, you're not necessarily controlling the clock.
Right.
Right. Like if you're controlling the clock, you might score 4 touchdowns, 1 each quarter, because every drive that you have is 5 minutes, and there's only 12 minutes in a quarter to begin with. So,
Yeah.
The time of possession, which is not a stat that's readily available for most high school football games, we don't really know how that works. So, I kind of feel like it's going to be a high-scoring affair, but who knows? Who knows after the first week?
So now moving on to the real barn burner of all the games we'll be picking today. I was going to count them real quick and I didn't. Marion taking on Wise Central. Now the Warriors have to travel over to Marion. We know that's a ride in itself. Last week they didn't have much of a ride because they stayed in county and took on Eastside, and Eastside beat them 44-0. Marion, on the other hand, let me get to my notes, lost to Chilhowie 38-0. So neither team has scored. But on my end, I'm going to take Marion to get their first win, 12-10.
12-10. Well, we can say this. Someone will score in this football game.
Yes.
And it will be the first points of the season for either team. I think a Rillian Central team traveling all the way over to Smith County gets a reprieve by taking on the really Marion squad. Here's how I'm reconciling the score in this game. So Central got beat by the Region 1D runner-up in Eastside, 44-0. And Chilhowie, a Region 1D playoff participant, goes to Marion and wins 38-0. I think Eastside's stronger than Chilhowie.
Oh, definitely.
Therefore, that 38-0 loss to Chilhowie is worse than a 44-0 loss to Eastside.
Yeah.
So, someone will score. Central 12, Marion 6.
I knew you was taking Wise. That's why I went with Marion in this one.
Someone will be right, at least, right?
That's right.
We're guaranteeing someone will be right in a game that will be exciting but not good football.
There should be a game inserted here. Graham taking on Galax. But Galax has forfeited that game. That came out yesterday. So we're not even going to worry about it. Not even going to pick it. We're going to move on. Graham.
There's so many things I want to say.
Let's just move on.
Okay. All right. I'm going to.
Now, Virginia High, as we just told you, in a loss to Patrick Henry 42-7, will take on John Battle, who lost to Abington 64-20. I think we said there was going to be a give me score of 7. They got a couple of extras in there. So, who you like in V-High Battle?
Well, I'm still not sure who Virginia High is. I have no idea who Virginia High is, but I do know who Battle is.
Yes.
I don't. Virginia High has all this talent. They have speedsters everywhere. But are they gelling? Are they coming together to be a football team? Which is always one of the reasons why I always thought that Virginia High was best played at the end of the season, because there could be a lot of turmoil and a lot of kids kind of like are moving on to basketball, which is what Virginia High is kind of known for. Also baseball, which is not a fall sport.
Right.
With all of that being said, I feel like Virginia High just has so many questions that they need to answer. The only difference is they played 2 games, and maybe they can start to answer some questions from week 1 to week 2, whereas John Battle gets absolutely exposed by an Abington team that's pretty good. And any questions that Battle has, they're having to answer those on the practice field and not have an extra game to play, right? So I feel like as many questions as there are for Virginia High, there are just as many questions for Battle. The only difference is I know who Battle is. I don't know who Virginia High is. I like Virginia High in a close one. And I say close, relatively close, 28-14.
So I don't know how much more I could add to that, except for if anybody from Battle's watching this, go say hi to Jimmy Keene. It's about as much as I could say right now because that dude's an awesome guy. V High 42. Battle put up some points on Abingdon. Abington's a better squad than V High. It could be higher score than this for John Battle, but 42-14.
42-14.
Now, if you have not listened to our coach's interview, go check out either Tazewell's coach or Ridgeview's coach.
Mm-hmm.
They're two really good interviews. So on this side, we have Ridgeview taking on Homeacre. Homeacre was back and forth with Lebanon, but there was a benefit game between Ridgeview and Homeacre. Or not Ridgeview and Homeacre, Ridgeview and Lebanon. That game got a little out of hand, with Ridgeview being the person making it out of hand. We know that you put in some second string, so we don't really know much about that. But Ridgeview could be a team to mess with. As we said in the first podcast, this could be a dark horse coming out of the Mountain 7. So Ridgeview got the pleasure of taking on Grundy, and that game was 64-20 Ridgeview. With all that being said, there was some unknowns going into that game. I really like the view coming out of this one. I'm going to take Ridgeview 48, Homeacre 21. And as you can tell, I didn't look over and see what he had.
All right, so I do like what you said about Ridgeview and the preseason game with Lebanon. I think that, see, Coach, I feel like this is a game of two teams that are kind of evenly thought about in terms of how they play the football game. They like to get up, run up and down the field. They like to score a lot of points. You know, that 62-20 win over Grundy that Ridgeview's coming off, it basically just reinforced what I thought about Ridgeview. I thought that they would boat race Grundy to start with, and they did exactly that. And, you know, Grundy tacks on a few towards the end. Homeacre had like close to 500 yards against Lebanon, but they couldn't put any points on the board. Like the fact that both Lebanon and Homeacre had, 500 yards, they had almost 1,000 yards of total offense in that game, and Lebanon scoring almost 50, and Homeacre can barely get into the 30s, I think is a problem. There may be some inexperience at quarterback for Homeacre. As good as he is, this is his first year. It's just his second start. So I think the fact that Homeacre couldn't keep Lebanon off the board doesn't bode well rolling to the Ridge. I like Ridgeview 49, Homeacre 30.
Now we go into a big game. The Union Bears will take on Boone High School.
Yeah, Daniel Boone. The Trailblazers.
Now, they are 0-2, but they're 0-2 against Volunteer, which is 30-0 in that game, and South Green, 32-17. So these aren't little schools they played. This is some big-time competition. But Union's not a little school either as they go in to take on the Bears. Who you like?
Well, I think Union proved, they kind of were par for the course against a lead team that they outmatched. They win that game 49-14. And I think that Union didn't have a lot of questions to answer going into the season. It was just, can they start out on a roll and just play par football until they get into the bigger games. Daniel Boone hasn't had it easy. They are a big school, but they haven't played like a big school, and they haven't been able to produce anything on the field that leads me to believe that that they can put together a lot of points. I mean, they've played 2 games, they've scored 17 total points, and they're getting ready to go to Big Stone Gap to play a Union team that, like we've talked about before, returns everybody. They returned everybody.
22.
I think that because Daniel Boone is used to playing in big games, they're not going to have like a deer in the headlights type look. But I don't think they have enough to do anything with Union. I like Union in a semi-upset because it's big school, little school.
Right.
But I like Union 28, Daniel Boone, the Trailblazers from Gray, Tennessee, 17.
Well, as Josh said, little school versus big school. I like to think the way this game's going to be played is going to be even. So I like Union in this one, 24-17.
Ooh, like that.
So now all I've been saying about this game is let's all go down to Thomas Walker. That's not how that song goes, but it's stuck in my head now. So the Lee Generals are going to travel to Thomas Walker. It's not too bad of a drive for them. It would be for us, but not too bad for these guys. So the Generals, they went and took on Union, as we just said, 49-14. Thomas Walker took on Cumberland Gap and won that game 35-27. That's two single A teams taking on each other. As much as we don't really pick Lee on this, I'm going to take Lee on this one because, as you've said in the past, big brother beating up on little brother, single A over in that area.
Mm-hmm.
I think Lee gets out of this one 28-12.
Yeah, so Lee was boat raced last week by Union that was just holding par, 49-14, like I said before. And, you know, they're playing a two-way football team. Thomas Walker being a single-A team, plays their cross-border rival in Cumberland Gap. And they play in a really exciting football game. But I don't think that Thomas Walker can kind of outshine the big brother here. I like Lee in a really close one, 26-24.
Ooh. All right. One more game before we get to that game of the week. Gate City taking on Dobbins Bennett over in Kingsport. Dobbins Bennett is 2-0, taking on Knoxville Central, 26-20 win, and Asheville 21-7. Do you think Gate City can squeak one out?
No, I don't think so. I think that this is Dobbins Bennett's the largest school in the state of Tennessee. They have 2,700 students, and this is seriously a case of big brother, little brother. Gate City's right across the line from Kingsport. I think Gate City looked really well last week. It looked really good last week against Richlands, but I'm still trying to reconcile what Richlands is at this point. And as much as I'd like to say that Gate City's got a shot here, I think Gate City can put some points on the board, but can they keep Dobbins Bennett out of the end zone? Especially when you travel down to Kingsport and go play in the big stadium there in Kingsport. Gate City might have some deer in the headlights type thought process early on. So, you know, I think that, I'd like to think that it's going to be close, but it's not. Dobbins Bennett 42, Gate City 21.
Yeah, Dobbins Bennett's going to roll this one. The only competition Gate City has played is Richlands, and that wasn't much to test. They did win that game 49-28. So, Dobbins Bennett in this one, 28-14. And now, Old Town Barbershop Game of the Week. Ta-da! From there, Christiansburg will travel to Abingdon. But Christiansburg has one loss on their record, and that's to Carroll County, 35-21. With as much as we saw of Abingdon, who beat Battle 62-13, this is going to be a better game. But losing to Carroll County, when they used to be in the Southwest District, we understand that they can be a good ball club. But when you're in Christiansburg, you really should be the better team. I don't know if Christiansburg has enough in this game to win it. Last year, this is it was in the last minute of the game. Christiansburg or Abingdon on a pass to the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were on like the 40-yard line, if I recall, to beat Christiansburg. We might be looking at the same thing. But I still like Abingdon in this one. Even though they have a young quarterback, they still got some good weapons they brought back from last year, which we just saw against Battle, even though it was Battle. We saw Battle squeak up and beat them before. But I'd like the Falcons in this one. 30, Christiansburg, 28.
I agree with everything you said. I think we picked this game for the game of the week because this has been an awesome, fun football game for the past couple of years. And, I think that, this is the biggest team that we kind of cover in Abingdon in 3A. I think it's interesting to know that Abingdon was so prolific offensively last week because that's really just not their style.
Right.
Or it hasn't been their style. Maybe that's their style this year. But this is a different test than John Battle. Christiansburg is coming off a loss to Carroll, but I think Carroll is kind of flipping the script on what kind of football team they are, and they have been over the past 5 years. So I really like the fact that, Abingdon has been so prolific, and I don't like the fact that Christiansburg gave up a loss to Carroll County, even though Carroll County is kind of flipping the script on who they are. I think that this game will be close because it's always interesting to see how Abingdon transitions from Battle, who they played the first game of the season, into this Christiansburg game. Because I think Abingdon showed that they can kind of make a run in 3A last year, and some of that is coming back from this past year, from last year to this year.
Right.
I think that Christiansburg's going to turn the ball over, and I think Abingdon's going to take advantage of that, much like they did against Battle. It's not going to be a runaway. It's going to be close. Abingdon 28, Christiansburg 24.
All right, before we transition, let's get that update.
Hidden Valley did not win.
Still got beat pretty bad.
They still got beat, but way more competitive than they were last year. In the first two games last year, I think the total score was 151-0. Well, they got beat by Stan River, the Eagles, 38-7. So it was respectable.
That's right. So they didn't get boat raced this time.
Not completely boat raced, and they scored some points. So good for Hidden Valley. We're still keeping our eye on them.
So let's transition. If you're coming to the Tazewell game from Pulaski, I'm going to try to get you all tagged into this. If you're coming from Pulaski to Tazewell, we don't have a sponsor that's food in Tazewell right now, but if I had to point you to a place to go, get there at 4:30, get you a smash burger, go to the Wayfair before you go to the game. You won't regret it. They also had live music on Friday night. Manny Ellswick was playing. Go to Spotify or Apple, check out his music. And the place was packed. Great food. I would point you to the filet as well. I don't know how much you're going to want to eat before a football game. Can't go wrong with either one of those. Where are you going to eat in Tazewell?
In Tazewell for dinner before a football game, I'm going to go to the Dust Bowl of Tazewell and stop in at Italian Village, and I'm going to get a burger from Italian Village because, I don't know, burger and fries or even the wings at Italian Village, they're underrated.
Yeah.
They're underrated, and I think Italian Village has one of the best burgers that you can get in Tazewell. I'll do that. You don't have to get there so early. It's right there before you get to the field.
Yep.
And have a great time. And when you stop in there, tell them that Josh Thompson sent you, and they'll make your fries extra crispy. Extra crispy.
So now, as we do the game of the week, we're in Abingdon. Where are you going to eat in Abingdon?
Well, I think Coach Padgett set a great spot in the White Birch. I love going to the White Birch. I love their freshly squeezed juices. But there is one place in Abingdon that all the referees and umpires and guys go to, and that's Puerto Vallarta.
Okay.
It's great Mexican. It's authentic, and you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong with their burrito supremes.
For me, we always like to pick local. This place is local. Go find the Till building with a hot dog and a hamburger on it. I'm going to Pals before this game.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of other places I could choose, but I'm going to Pals. Get you a tea and some Frenchy fries. Can't go wrong. Before we leave, got anything else?
Just keep the Titans in your prayers. And maybe they'll get a little more competitive. They'll find someone on that schedule that they can beat, and they'll take advantage of it.
All right. Corey over there, he says hi. He's lonesome because his 12:30 hasn't showed up yet. So it's not like this joint. But we appreciate you logging on, listening wherever that's at, Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. And as the barter always says, if you like us, talk about us. If you don't, then keep your mouth shut. Y'all have a good week.
Go Dogs.